There you go. Am I on loud? Turning me off. Okay, everybody. I hope everybody enjoyed dinner. And as you finish up, we're going to start. Allan has an exciting evening for us. A little more interactive than
Yep. Enjoyed that.
what everything we went through earlier today.
Okay.
So is everybody ready for the night? Okay, here we go. Take it away, Allan.
Okay. We're going to shift gears. We will come back to some of those slides that we didn't get to. Can I get you to rehang this up on the stand for me, please? Okay, we're going to have a little bit of fun now. And again, this is a message I need you to hear. Advocacy work, systems change work is intense and exhausting. And as I said, it will always be there for something. We need to recognize, just as we hear a lot about these days about work-life balance, we need advocacy life balance too. No, seriously, we have got to take some time out and have some fun. When we have a victory, we are not good at celebrating. We get a bill passed or somebody does something we want, take time out, have a party, give an award to that senator or that rep or several of them, because it doesn't cost you anything to give recognition. And it's good for them, it's good for us, and it usually gets in the newspaper. So these are things we are so vigilant that, okay, we got this one solved, but I got 25 more I got to work on now. Time out, party, rest, let's go forward. So now we're going to have a little fun with what's called a trip down memory lane. Okay? And we're going to break up into groups by your decade of high school graduation, which might be a little less intimidating than asking you how old you are. Not much, but it helps a little bit. And depending how that works, we may even do them in half decades if we have to. So I have to be careful here because I never know. Oh, good. You can be my scribe. Thank you, Linda. All right. Listen up, please. I'm gonna have you raise hands just so we can see who's here by the decade of high school graduation. And I know there's going to be at least one smarty in the room who said, well, I didn't graduate, but I would. Fine. What year would you have graduated if you stayed with your high school class? Okay. Anybody graduate from high school now, prior to 1980? Good. I didn't think so. Okay. 1981 to 1990. Anybody? Okay, count hands. Oh, quite a few. One, two, three, four. And yourself? Five? 4 or 5, whatever. Okay. Okay.
Really can't. I have to go eat my dinner.
Okay. I woofed mine down. Okay. 1991 to 2000 high school graduates. Oh my. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. These are decent numbers. We can make this work. Sometimes I get 8 or 9. We have to subdivide. Okay. 2001 to 2010. Hands up. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Okay. 2011 to 2020. Oh my. 1, 2, 3. Whew. Okay. We got a nice diversity here.
Try.
Anybody 2021 or more recent than that? No. Okay. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 groups. Beautiful. Okay. Now you're going to have to remember. Yes, I'm sorry.
I was out when you did the first one.
Oh, so are you 81 to 90? Or are you
No.
prior to?
We're going to give you to this group right here. You're in
Are you on the cusp? If you're on the cusp, it's fine. Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
All right. We've already pulled some paper, but before I have you move, if you'll flip this for me to the next page, just flip it over.
My hands are so full.
Yeah. Okay. When you break into your groups, that's why it's called a trip down memory lane. I want you to think back to when you were in high school and you're going to brainstorm, and this is important. You're not going to sit in judgment and say, oh, that really wasn't 1989. It was 1992. That's not what we're into here. This is not a history test. This is a trip down memory lane. We're trying to get some trends. So in each of your groups, and I'd like somebody to be the scribe. We've got plenty of paper and we've got plenty of markers. All right, one person in each. So we'll have 4. Put the decade at the top because then we're going to hang them in chronological order.
I'm sticky notes to go.
Oh.
2 that are colored.
Okay,
Look for
fine.
those 2
Great.
and have a lot of fun.
So, and you're going to have about 12 to 15 minutes, not a lot of time, brainstorming number 1. And then you can always, you'll put number 1 heroes. Who you remember were the heroes when you were in high school. And it can be anything that anybody that was a hero for you or wrong. Well, is it okay? I said, whatever was in your mind as a hero is your hero. Some people say, well, it was my dad. Fine, write it down. That's fine. Okay. Number 2 category, what were the major news events that you remember when you were in high school? What made the front page newspaper for 3 or 4 years? Okay. Third one, the women always have a lot more fun with this than the men. What were the fads and fashions while you were in high school? And again, yeah, hair stuff, clothes, whatever, just write them down as people say them. Go slow so they can get them written down. Okay. Next category, what do you remember when you were in high school were the scientific breakthroughs? Okay. I mean, I'm old enough to remember the Salk polio vaccine. That was a biggie. By the time you folks, it was already here. But what were the scientific breakthroughs when you were in high school as you remember them? And again, there's no right or wrongs. If somebody says this started, don't get in a debate and say, well, as I remember it, it didn't start till whatever. It's irrelevant. It's what do you remember? All right. Number 5, this is a fun one. What were the taboos or taboos when you were in high school? And again, they're different in different places. They're different in different age groups. And again, just write them down and no disagreement. If somebody says it was X and somebody says it was Y, write down X and Y because that was your experience and that was fine. Okay. And last but no means least, what did your parents tell you about sex while you were in high school? Or not, as the case may be. Okay. So that's what I said. We're going to have some fun. I need somebody to be the recorder in each of your groups when we break up into the 4 groups. One person different to sort of be the facilitator to keep you going. You know, if you've sort of taken care of a bunch of heroes, doesn't mean you can't come back, move on to the next category. Write number 2, write those down. You've got 2 sheets of paper. If you need more, we have plenty of paper. All right. So now let's rearrange the groups. Let's flip back here. So let me see who is in the 81 to 90. Put your hands up again. Okay. Well, what I'm going to suggest, since your table's open and the one behind you is, that group will have these 2 tables and you can turn chairs or whatever. So that group can go there. Why don't you go now? So it'll make it easier.
On the back.
Right. So then you're going to be able to hang them right page 1 and 2 with the decade on it. Then we're going to hang them up here. Okay. All right. 91 to 2000. Who's in that group? Okay. Okay. Back there. All over the place. Okay. Why don't we have these both? Are both of you leaving that table? You're at this table. Okay. So let's have 91 and 2000. Where are you going? Oh, you're still sitting there. Which group are you in? Okay. Okay. You're not though. Is that right? She's leaving. Good. 91 and 2000, these 2 tables. Okay. Thank you. 91 and 2000, the front 2 on my right. Okay, 2001 to 2010. Let me see the hands. You're already together? Great. You may stay. You don't have to move. Look at that. No relocation. We'll get you some paper and marker in a minute. We'll come back to it. I'll give them for you in a minute. Let me just get everybody at the right table, please. Okay. All right. And where are the three youngins? 2011 to 2020? You,
Yeah, we're the.
is there one more though? Said
Yeah,
to,
she's coming.
okay, so you guys can be right there then, right? Okay, cool.
Sitting over here outside.
Okay,
I can
okay,
steal from others.
okay,
You get ready.
great, thank you. Okay, so get in your groups, please. Let's stay focused. Need a drink? Fine, okay. And again, here's what you're gonna do, please. Folks, ho, ho. I said have fun, but. All right,
He's trying to give you some more direction.
yeah. Remember, somebody's gonna be the recorder, okay? And write. So first thing at the top, write the decade that you are in. So I know when we hang them, we're gonna hang it in chronological order, okay? Okay? So whatever you are, you're 2001 to 2010, I think, or 10 to 20, whatever it was. Okay, then start brainstorming, okay? Category 1, who were your heroes? And again, everybody's hero counts. Try to go around, let everybody gets to participate. 2, major news events. 3, fads and fashions. 4, scientific breakthroughs. 5, taboos. And 6, what did your parents tell you about sex? Go to work. Okay, we're winding down here. Okay. Okay. Beautiful. Linda, do you have the handheld mic? Okay, back to work now. So we have, stop folks, please. I know you had a good time, you had fun, all's good. Now you get to share. So somebody from the 81 to 90 group, come forward and spout your wisdom. You have been chosen.
Just because my hair is
Whoops.
gray.
I don't know that that's the case, but.
Okay. Um,
Listen up, because I want you to listen to each of the decades and what might be similarities and what might be differences. Okay, listen, please.
All right, we had Martin Luther King as a hero. He represents everything that we have been talking about today.
Whoops, including falling down.
Yes. And then we have the action female actress, Linda Hamilton. And then who would not resist Sylvester Stallone and running up those steps in Rocky, you know? Yes, and that's right.
See?
And then, of course, the musical group, the Beatles, you know, a legend of all time. Significant events going on, Desert Storm. We could remember that we heard the war breaking out on the radio at about 8 o'clock at night. It was just amazing. We also remember, regretfully, the Challenger disaster. where we lost so many brilliant astronauts. There, in nature, we had significant events with the Mount St. Helens volcanic eruption in Washington, and then the devastating earthquake in Mexico City. Fashion trends and fads, leg warmers, shoulder pads. Everybody wanted to look like Linda Evans on Dynasty. Bright neon colors, pink and green, lots of big hair, and the microwave. Certainly changed my life. Other electronic devices coming into vogue were beepers. Now, the younger set, you probably never heard of a bag phone. It was a canvas case, kind of a rectangular canvas case, and you unzipped it and you pulled out this thing and pulled up the antenna. And, you thought you were just the coolest person, at least my boss did, because he's the only person I knew that could afford one. And then there was Pac-Man and Atari. And right after that, our beloved Mario Brothers on video games. Scientifically, we had the introduction of an artificial human heart. The Walkman also became a quite popular way to listen to music. Hot topics, taboos were abortion, homosexuality, and the don't ask, don't tell movement. And then what your parents told you about sex? Nothing. Or use birth control. For the females, it was, don't you kiss a boy and come home pregnant, because that's how it happens.
Kissing, okay.
Yeah, just by kissing. Yes.
It's the new biology.
Yes.
Okay.
And then Maria had a very interesting comment that she remembered, that her mom told her that women were like mirrors. And if you had an inappropriate relationship or encounter, that you would become smeared. And of course, the onset of a variety of recreational drugs. Don't use those.
Wow. Thank you very much. Comments, questions from others seem to resonate. And again, that's a chunk of time ago, but these were things that were vivid as I began and you began to talk about them, that you all remembered. And I mean, if you look at it, technology was very young at that point. I suspect we're going to see some interesting things as we go forward. And if you look at the news events, all right, all on the, I'll call it negative side or scary side: Desert Storm, Challenger disaster, Mount St. Helens eruption, and an earthquake in Mexico City. So again, think about it. The stuff that highlighted was all the heavy duty, not so nice stuff, if you will, people being hurt, devastated, property, etc. So just think that through. Okay, 91 to 2000. Somebody pop up here. Pass the torch. I mean, the mic.
Gladly.
Okay, 1991 to 2000.
Hold the mic a little closer.
For heroes, we had Michael Jordan, Arnold Schwarzenegger, action heroes. Number 2, major news events: Y2K, Desert Storm, Bush and Al Gore and Clinton, Monica Lewinsky, FMLA. Number 3, fad and fashions, high top fades, MC Hammer pants, LA gear, biker shorts, Guess neon, Big Bangs, the melt. For scientific breakthroughs, World Wide Web, bag cell phones, NSA, Pathfinders, Mars, and Windows 95. Number 5, taboos, AIDS, homosexuals, interracial couples, don't ask, don't tell, 2 Live Crew.
Some things don't change. Go ahead.
Number 6, what did your parents tell you about sex? Nothing. Don't do it. Take you to the doctor and put you on the pill.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you. And again, you will see some things didn't change very much. They had a lot of fun with fads and fashions in that group. But I want you to look at the difference in the scientific breakthroughs already starting in the 90s with all the, read again the stuff you have up there.
In the
And the scientific breakthroughs.
Oh,
your
the
top
scientific
right.
breakthrough
Yeah.
was a World Wide Web, bag cell phone, cloning, NSA, paraffin of Mars, and Windows 95.
Okay. That's a lot of stuff that happened in that 10-year period that obviously has continued to evolve. And if you look back before, okay, beepers, bag phones, Atari, Pac-Man, none of the more, I'll call it, they're sophisticated. And I'm sure as we go along. So one of the things here to watch is the impact of technology on our lives, which I like because I've rammed it at you several times about assistive technology for people with disabilities. Thank you very much. 2001 to 2010. Next. Okay, who's up? Drafted. All right.
Are we being recorded? Hey, it's Paige Perry. I guess I'm on camera, so y'all don't need to know that.
And you can
So
sign autographs later.
well, I'm afraid of Linda. Okay. So our parents beat us as children, and she gets on you if you don't introduce yourself. So look, not me, not today. She will. Okay, so our heroes were first responders. We attributed that to 9/11. Also TV talk show hosts like meaning Oprah, The View, Barbara Walters, folks like that.
Wow.
Major news events that we remembered were 9/11, Y2K. We thought that was still being talked about when we graduated. Immigration policies and like the drug war in South America, talking a lot about George W. and George H. Bush. And then school shootings started to make the news. And that was some of the first news stories we remembered from that time. Fads included cell phones, particularly flip phones like the Razor. There was a trend in skater culture, I guess is the word. I was like chunky highlights. If anybody remembers, it was not flattering to anybody, but we all did it. Grey's Anatomy first came out, so that was kind of a social thing. A reality TV show really, started to take the culture over, I guess, Survivor, Bachelor, Bachelorette, all those sorts of things. And then American Idol, we thought about that as being something that impacted trends for us in high school.
Okay.
Scientific breakthroughs we mentioned were Dolly the sheep, which goes along with the cloning talked about earlier. And then iPods came out, iPads, tablets, really more portable technology. And then also DSL. So we went from the dial-up of the 90s to where you could make a phone call while you were surfing the internet. And then 5, I forget what's that category. Oh, taboos. So getting pregnant, I guess, out of wedlock or whatnot. Drugs, we're the DARE generation. Dropping out of high school without finishing your studies. And then not going to college even. And then our sex ed. Some people were told not to do it. Nothing, to be smart. And there was a lot of education around STDs and I guess scare tactics related to that. So.
Okay, thank you very much. And 2011 to 2020.
Yeah, so for us, some of our childhood heroes were President Obama and the U.S. women's soccer team. I was a soccer player, and they won multiple World Cups and multiple things underneath them.
Okay.
And then major historical, major events that were going on around this time, we had Obama was the first Black president of the United States of America. A lot of people remember Obamacare. And we do want to talk about 9/11 because for us, we do remember 9/11, even though we were very young, but we still had the ongoing wars and a lot of the policies were affected and defense. I'm from Huntsville, Alabama, which is the military town. So it was always a constant topic. Recession also had started and was kind of going into this time from what we remember because gas was, $4+ and that was painful
Mhm.
to pay myself. Things that were fads, we focused more on fashions. The skater trend that people are talking about was like fading out as I was graduating, and it was very preppy as well, which was a lot like girls that wear like the long tank tops over underneath the polos and skinny jeans and the Ugg boots, flow rider, you know. So fad, flow rider, rap music, Beyonce was a big thing. All right, and then scientific breakthroughs. We remember a lot about vaccinations being a big thing because the Ebola pandemic was going on. And that was doing a lot of research. And then we talked about it. There was like viral headlines at the time about vaccines causing autism. We just remember that being like a big deal, and like side effects of vaccines and everything. And then things that were taboo for us is sex was very taboo for a lot of us, and tattoos. Oh goodness gracious. Tattoos sometimes, because tattoos were very outbanded in high school. And she's from Korea originally, so it's very frowned upon to even have a tattoo still to this day, right? Okay. And then drugs, because y'all had the Dare movement and they were still doing that campaign as we were in high school. Yep. And then what our parents taught to us about sex, we all had like very similar things. There was a big movement going on in the church to me, both Catholic and Protestant, called the Purity Movement. And for us at like all the church retreats, they would have like this purity movement where it was very highly emphasized that women had to have a purity ring and everything, and women had to be more careful than men. And that was one of the big things that we were talked about. And so that's what we got.
Wow, thank you very much. Okay. Then you can just put down. Okay. So we have just looked very quickly at 40 years of history. Okay. What do you see as trends as you look across and listen to what you heard? Yes.
A lot of this information has been on something like sex, something that's very that everyone does.
But we don't teach our kids about it. And again, in our specific community, there are several states where legislation was introduced specifically to be sure that sex education is taught in special ed, accommodated or whatever. Unbelievable parental revolt. You're going to make my kid think it's okay to have sex. No, that's not the purpose of sex ed. But again, the mythology that goes on with this, and again, I know we talked earlier, somebody made reference to abuse. I think in the presentation about the resource fair, okay? Do you know what the hard facts are about physical and sexual abuse of people with disabilities? Yeah, but the hard facts of who are the perpetrators? And family members, often stepdads, stepmoms, siblings, people sharing a room in a group home, the DSP staff. Here's the research from 2 professors. They've looked at it, all the complaints that have been filed over 10 years. 86% are people known to the person, not a stranger. Again, we've created this other myth. My kid can't go in the community, they'll be raped. No, the odds are they might be raped in the day program, I'm sorry to tell you, or in the back room of the group home or something like that. We don't want it to happen anywhere, but we've created this false sense of security that if you're in a special place for them, you're safer than walking down the street or working at Walmart. Not to say that somebody with a disability couldn't be assaulted out in the public, but the odds are 4.5 to 1. It's going to be somebody they know, not a stranger. So again, share that with your friends and colleagues, because that is a massive myth across this country of the reason we have these day programs is they're going to be safe there. Not necessarily so. So yes, Linda. Yeah.
Hi, it's Niles. And I was trying to say earlier that ironically, I do think the myths are what's allowing the abuse to be perpetuated, because the myth basically covers up what's going on. That's why I was trying to say earlier.
You're right on point. Okay, anything else that you've seen up there as a trend or whatever? Yeah.
I do think it's an interesting observation. I see a lot of history with wars. And I do think it's quite interesting to me, just looking at history. History repeats itself. We have war and different conflicts going on. That takes precedent on policy over everything else is what I typically find. So
You're absolutely right. And 9/11 dominated the landscape. I mean, prior to 9/11, we didn't have TSA in the airports. You checked your bag or brought your bag and went to the gate. Done. You could get, pardon me? Yeah, yeah. And again, you could do it, you could get there half hour before flight time. As long as they didn't close the door, you could get on. Now, when I travel, I want to be at the curb at least an hour and a half. If I get there early, fine, I'll get a cup of coffee or something. But otherwise, they're not going to hold the flights for you. Okay. So that all came from 9/11. And here's the one that's painful that I'll share with you. I worked in DC before and after. I get it. And I know we have to do it. Prior to 9/11, anybody could walk into the US Capitol and walk through the rotunda, look at the artwork and whatever. Now, not only do you go through security, if you don't have an appointment that can be documented because they'll call the office, or you're not with a specific tour group, which has a separate entrance, you are not allowed as a citizen of this country to go into the quote hall of democracy. I'm in pain over that. I get it. And it's sad. And there are concrete barricades around the Capitol now. I watched all of that happen and that it was all post 9/11. I respect it. I know we have to do it, but it pains me greatly believing in the democracy, small d, that we have to do that in this country. You can't go into the nation's capital as a tourist and just say, I want to see the rotunda or the paintings.
We can't go in this. You see your congressman now, but you have to be escorted. They have to come out the door to get you and then escort you in.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a sad commentary of what has happened legitimately with the fear. And I get it. Like I say, I'm not saying don't do it, but it pains me as a citizen to have seen the life before. And I would take people who would visit DC. Come on, let's go to the Capitol. Oh, really? Yeah. And we'd spend an hour just walking through it because it's impressive as heck. Okay. Not now. Get on a tour group and you better do that well in advance before your trip because there's only so many a day. And if not, you can't get in that building unless you know somebody and you've got an appointment with the majority leader or somebody who's got an office in the Capitol. So yeah, 9/11 has had and continues to have an impact on our lives. Yeah.
Visit DC as a first grader, and I remember my best friend lived there. And then I actually got to visit DC in first grade. I remember it so well because my best friend had moved up there for government contracting job, and then her dad was was on the train going under the Pentagon when the plane hit.
Wow.
And he was okay. But I remember getting to go to the Capitol and all the museums and not worry about it as a first grade. And then I remember going back in fourth grade. Because my dad was doing stuff up there, he would just take us up there for fun and just all the security measures. And I was like, I remember asking him, even like getting onto the metro, I'm like, we didn't have to do this. He's like, yeah, this is because of 9/11.
Yep. So. Yeah. Well, you've seen it. All right. Now let me ask you another question and start with each of the groups. 1981 to 1990. You're scattered a bit now. How many of you were in school and had kids who were kids with disabilities in your classroom a significant portion of the time in the 81 to 90 group? Yes? Really?
I grew up in Massachusetts, Springfield, Massachusetts. And
I grew up in Hartford, Connecticut. We'll compare notes right up the street.
Yeah, in our classroom, we had several, there were two students that I remember specifically because they were in our arts class, and I saw them most of the day, and then they would disappear. We wouldn't see them. We would see them like at the beginning.
Got it.
In some of our like arts classes and wood shop. I can remember Sal was one, and I can't remember the other girl's name.
Yeah.
But I remember her face very well. But yeah, they would disappear. We would never see them. We would see them, every day, but just like only like at the beginning of the day.
Yeah, you didn't really have time to build relationships with them. Okay. All right. How about in the 90s group? Any difference? Anybody? Nope, doesn't sound it. All right, 2001 to 2010. Any difference?
They were in every class.
They were. A lot of kids or some?
Some.
Some.
Yeah. So
Okay.
they were in, and I'm trying to think, they were involved in sports, usually as managers.
Of course.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm trying to think. But they were in all of our extracurriculars, even if they were pulled out for some component of like whatever.
Okay, so it
But
was a
they were,
step.
there were ones that were in the class
Okay.
for full-time, with an aide.
All right.
This is Christy. So mine is different. Like I can remember in high school, I never saw kids with disabilities in the hallways. In my elementary, I did, but I didn't grow up in the same area. But even as my daughter now, like they're in a whole different building than like she doesn't do any peer-to-peer activities with her 9th grade class, unless I really push it, but that's.
Yeah. No.
Nancy's already aware of most of it.
Okay.
So, but yeah, I mean, it's still pretty much the same in our area as it was when I was in school. You just don't see them.
Well, for those of you who remember in the civil rights days, Brown versus Board of Education, the same holds true for us. Separate is not equal. Sorry, no matter what. Okay, and then the youngins, 2011 to 20. What were your experiences as people with disabilities in the classroom or in separate class or pull in, push out? Speak up.
You have any experience, because I know we both have disabilities, but do you?
So I remember it's pretty similar to Christy. That's from elementary school. I remember there was few friends in my class, but as we grew up, like high school, I hardly see them in the classroom. But maybe I know that there's like a class, like separate class there, but we were not in the same class in high school, but we did in elementary school.
Yeah. Not uncommon. Okay, so go ahead, please.
Is Niles, by the way, and as someone with autism, I wasn't so good with the social skills or the nuances with people in general. So at a glance, I appear normal. And I think that was
Whatever that means, but okay.
Normal.
Yeah.
So I think that was also a source of bullying when I just decided to be myself and my disability showed itself.
And here you are.
My district did not support any accommodations for me growing up. So my parents just opted to send me to private school instead. So what often happens, I think, with us, especially deaf hard of hearing children, we end up being the solitaire in school districts and mainstream when we get good support and everything, which is thankfully what I did have. So I do have 2 siblings. I have hearing loss as well. So they were also the other deaf kids in the school. So that's, but I mean, 3 to 7 years apart. But growing up, I was pulled out of school and sent to speech therapy at a different school. So my classmates got very used to, well, part of my IEP, because they didn't have a speech therapist private school. So I got used to going out of school and then coming back to school. And people always thought that was weird because I would disappear and then I would come back.
Right.
And then I eventually graduated and just had other things in high school.
Okay, thank you. So all of us, and some of you even in the same age group, had different experiences because of which community you grew up in or which state or which country or whatever. So here's the trick to all of this. The real name for this is you are who you are because of where you were when. Okay? We're all a product of the environment we grow up with, all right, and grow up in. And here's the connection to our work. This is social psychology. You can go check it out. Based on where you grow up, your family, your place of faith, your community, your culture, your values, your belief system, your filter is 75 to 80% in place when you turn 13 years old. From 13 to 18 is the next phase. And Again, parents do a great job, but peer pressures come in sometimes to adolescents. They deviate, whatever. Hopefully you keep them on course. By 18 to 21, your core values are 100%. The only thing that's going to change them is a significant life experience. Therefore, as I said earlier, for people who grew up without seeing people with disabilities, without seeing them as friends or neighbors or go to church or temple or whatever it might be, they're different. They're not like me. Therefore, they're less than. That's where a lot of this stuff comes from. So for us, you've had that significant life experience, stuff has changed, and you have a different value. And I've seen this happen to parents who grew up in that kind of environment. Then they get a kid with a disability, they get exposed to this, and it takes them a couple of years to untangle 18 years of stuff they observed. Nobody gave it to them in a book and said anything, but they learned it through the culture, and that's the real world.
Unconscious bias. It's a bias that's unconscious. You're not aware.
No, that's why it's called implicit bias today, even in racism. And the same is true, I think, in ableism, is it's unconscious. You just absorb it in the culture. Somebody didn't sit down and tell you, don't go near that kid. They're dangerous or they're crippled or they're whatever the words were. No, we just come up with those reasons. So as we go forward, this is important to remember when you meet with members of Congress, your state legislature, their staff. How old are they? Where might they have grown up? What are their experiences? Okay. We still have people in some states, I mean, you've closed Partlow, but in some states who believe people like that need to go to the state institution. That's what they grew up seeing. That's what they grew up hearing. And a part of what I want you to do then is get past it. You don't want to get angry at them and say, you stupid jerk, don't you understand? Because you won't last 2 more minutes in that meeting, okay? Dignity and respect. Your job, and we're going to get into this, is to inform and educate. Inform and educate, because our biggest enemy, and we've talked about it all day today, is ignorance. And there is massive ignorance in society as a whole, lots of exceptions, about what is disability. That's why I gave you the Bob Dole quote when we started, because he said it beautifully. It's all of us. It's just when. Okay. And it doesn't discriminate on any of the usual silos that we put. And I particularly like that he had socioeconomic status and political party, because he's right. Doesn't say if you're a Republican or a Democrat, you won't ever have disability, or you're rich and you won't have it. So again, what I want you to be thinking about, and the reason we do this besides having the fun, which you did, is to be clear, people are not necessarily evil. The culturally learned or implicit bias, whatever term you want to use, is how they grew up. And our job is to help them see that there's a better way to look at this, not by calling them names or any of that, that isn't going to help, but by giving them studies, bringing in a person who will create for them, well, wait a minute, how could somebody like that do that? Well, they are, sir, because we did this and we did that, or ma'am. Wow, thank you for sharing. And I've seen many legislators or their staff thank people with disabilities or families coming in, telling a story with a photo, for helping them get disconnected from what they learned. And that's powerful. That's why we do legislative advocacy, okay? All right. So again, have fun, take time out, celebrate, what have you. All right, according to my TikTok, it is 7:45. And before we go into, because you're only having one bill, we're going to discuss the Better Care, Better Jobs Act that you already did a little work on last Wednesday night.